At the San Francisco Compute Company, we've discovered, because of how the company started out, that there's a big opportunity to unlock the compute that's already out there. And that's a big part of what we're doing. We're not just out trying to build new stuff or purchase new stuff. What we're doing is we're actually improving the utilization and the efficiency of what's already out there. We hear about the power envelope issues, the noisy neighbor challenges, the compute and memory constraints, right, in the industry across the globe. Tapping into what's already out there and already deployed is a massive opportunity, and that's a big part of what we're doing. We're tapping into the compute that's already out there and helping someone maybe improve their efficiency from 50% utilization to 60 or 70% if they're lucky, and actually have that infrastructure start to work and pay back for them, right? And help pay down their CapEx expenditure in addition to improved utilization. So I think these are early days in this space, but we like our mission, we like our charter, and we like improving the efficiency. I mean, we're almost a green story if you think about it, right? Okay, we're improving what's already out there, not just trying to go off and build more of it. Hi, I'm Alan Butler from the San Francisco Compute Company, and you're watching the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Hi, it's Joshua Feinberg, host of the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and today I'm being joined by Alan Butler, who is Chief Business Officer of the San Francisco Compute Company based in San Francisco. Alan is a longtime member of the Silicon Valley tech community, and thrilled to welcome you to the podcast today, Alan. Thanks so much for joining me.
Pleased to be here, Joshua. Pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. So, Alan, let's jump straight into the deep end. From your perspective at San Francisco Compute, what do you see as the single biggest go-to-market, single biggest GTM hurdle the teams in our space are facing today? Is it GPU supply constraints? Is it energy? Is it orchestration? Is it capital? What do you see as the single biggest root GTM struggle that's driving the industry nuts right now?
On one hand, I want to say all of it, but in reality, it's simply supply, right? Our supply is, at the San Francisco Compute Company, we've grown over 18x in revenue in the past 12 months, rapidly growing company. And we don't have a customer lead problem. We have a supply opportunity challenge to deal with. And that's what we're up to right now, is how to get more supply into the ecosystem. In particular, we are serving the AI startups and the developer community, very heavily focused on that. There are 40,000 Inception members for NVIDIA who cannot get enough compute themselves, with shorter term commitments that we're helping unlock. So supply is the order of the day. If we get supply, everything else takes care of itself, and we're in the middle of solving some of that in a variety of creative ways.
Has that massive amount of demand surprised you? You mentioned when we were talking earlier that you worked with Scott McNealy and the golden age of growth at Sun Microsystems. Did you ever see anything like that in those days? Did you ever envision that you'd see anything like what NVIDIA is seeing now?
I mean, no one can say that they envisioned this, right? I don't think. But I will point out the Sun was the fastest company ever, from $0 to $1 billion from 1982 to 87 in 5 years. And that was 80s dollars. So us, the Sun guys, we're used to pace, we're used to change, we're used to driving innovative solutions that actually work. And in some sense, it's a little bit of back to the future in a different kind of creative way. But a lot of the basics are relevant, and the network is the people, as we like to say more recently.
Now, when supply itself is the main bottleneck, how do you find that your marketing needs to pivot from lead generation to demand generation? What are you adjusting on a tactical basis with different members of your team?
Frankly, pretty much 100% of our lead generation is inbound today, So we don't actually have a material outbound lead generation mechanism yet. We will, but we don't yet. That's because we're too busy satisfying demand that's inbound, and we don't have, to the earlier point, enough supply to fulfill all of it. But we are getting very creative with some of our strategic partners in how to fulfill that demand. We're doing some data center capacity build out ourselves with some of our own compute, and that will continue to help satisfy some of the demand, but that will be the minority of business, not the majority. And we're got multiple work streams going on with NVIDIA and other partners in how we unlock additional capacity that's already out there that's just not being tapped into properly.
When you say that right now there's so much inbound, there's so much demand that there really hasn't been a need to be all that proactive on go to market, what do you think is the timeline when you think you'll see that point where you're finally catching up, where you need to be a little more proactive? Is it months away? Is it a few years away?
Oh, I think the second half of this year. I don't like to. My style is not to assume everything continues business as usual in inbound fashion. I like to plan for change and plan for needing to create more demand and plan for needing to supply more supply, right? And that's an important factor.
I want to get your take on how high density AI workloads are currently influencing companies like San Francisco Compute and some of the different partners that you work with. And in a lot of ways, we see that it's rewritten the infrastructure playbooks over the past year. How has the shift to high density infrastructure really fundamentally changed the playbook that you're using? Is it adjusting how you define your ideal clients, your addressable market, the kinds of motion, the kind of journeys, the kind of enablement?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One is we're very focused, as I mentioned earlier, on the developer community and AI native startups, right? And what they're looking for is they're looking for short-term access to high quality, high performance compute. And they don't have the budget or the timeline to be able to entertain or engage with the traditional neoclouds for 3 or 5 year contracts. They don't have the budget for it, they don't have the need for it, and so forth. Because of that, we're serving this community that's really heavily underserved across the industry globally, actually. And because of our unique resale mechanisms with our technology and our software, we feel pretty confident of our ability to deliver on the capability to deal with that long tail of short-term compute access that many in the industry have not been focused on or paying attention to or have the desire or capability to solve. That's what we're focused on. We like our unique position right now.
It sounds like what you're describing almost is a little bit like the traditional distribution aggregation model that has existed in the IT ecosystem for decades. Back when I was in the system builder space and VAR space and enterprise and SMB space, this was companies like what's now TD Synnex or Tech Data
Or Arrow,
Yep.
Terrasoft, right? Yeah.
Do you see any parallels to the function that your company now provides?
That's actually quite an interesting question because the answer is yes, right? I do. Different, but yes, I do. And as a matter of fact, I think some of those companies that you mentioned are future potential partners for us together also because we're delivering a service. I can remember when AWS got going and none of those distributors knew how to deal with it and are they cut out of the business, and you fast forward a decade or more later and it's a big part of their business today, right? And so I think there's an opportunity to explore, just like Back to the Future, whether it's Sun or the distributors, there's also an opportunity to explore and tap into those ecosystem partners in a new creative way that they haven't been focused on yet. But this is a new nascent space, and I see this evolving pretty quick over the next 6, 12, and 18 months.
Being that it's such a new nascent space, I know a big part of success for companies throughout the data center ecosystem is making sure that there's proper expectations management, making sure that alignment is in place, making sure that buyer education is addressed proactively. And it seems to be more important than it was 10 years ago because generative AI has accelerated IT professionals and engineers' thirst for doing a lot more on their own before they get
Yep.
to a sales conversation. That marketing allergy, that sales allergy that's always kind of sort of been there with highly technical IT folks seems to really, really have accelerated coming into the mid 2020s, especially with all everyone's favorite Gen AI tools. So given that modern infrastructure buyers are now doing 70, 80, 90% of their research before speaking to a sales team, how do you reach them? What are you finding success with reaching them in terms of early enough to be able to shape priorities in that dark funnel?
A lot of them don't know what exists out there, and there's a lot of companies, many globally, that are in these kind of aggregator marketplace type spaces, right? And we actually at the San Francisco Compute Company, we don't really like the term marketplace, and most certainly not the term aggregator, because we're very we're a very technical team. We have our own software stack that manages all this. The New York Times back in December called us the Airbnb of GPU compute after we closed our Series A for 40 million on a 300 million valuation with 24 employees. And but there's a couple of distinctions. One is when we sell our capacity and deliver our service, we've got the data centers, the suppliers standing behind us from an SLA point of view. And so we're turnkey. So you do not come in and buy something from us and then you deploy it and then go to have an issue and then contact, like for instance, San Francisco Compute Company, for us to tell you go contact a data center on your own. We don't do any of that. We're a one-stop shop. We sell you what we sell you, we support you while we sell you, and we don't leave you hanging out to dry. And that's a really big difference on what we're doing, unlike the majority in the industry. The second thing that's very unique to what we're doing, of which the ecosystem is paying a lot of attention to, including NVIDIA, is our unique resale capability. You come in, you decide, for instance, I need 100K of H100s for 6 months, and you decide that, oh, I actually only needed it for 3 months, or I only needed half the value. We'll help you get out from underneath your overcommitment and remarket that back into the industry to help you recover some, if not all, or the majority of your overcommitment in the first place. Very unique that is in the industry, and that's very appealing.
Again, super interesting that I'm thinking about earlier chapters in my own career and earlier chapters in the channel partner ecosystem with the idea of value-added resellers and integrators and managed service providers, especially for SMBs or small and medium-sized businesses, where the value was the single point of contact for anything and everything having to do with IT, the single throat to choke. And back then, getting involved in financial services a lot of times was being an intermediary for a leasing company or factoring company, finance company, or something like that. I'm seeing increasingly across the data center ecosystem, including across several different parts of the facilities ecosystem, the need to get deeply involved in financial services. Are you finding more and more CFO kind of conversations because of all that?
Well, let me phrase on, we're a horizontal play in terms of a platform, right? So, whether it's financial services or whether it's healthcare or whether it's government or retail, oil and gas, all industries are appropriate for us in that context. However, to maybe the second part of your, or another part of your question on it is a financial trading market that we're almost creating, right? And the cost of money and the cost of capital is a conversation we have every single day. So, we have technology conversations, we have partnership conversations, we have customer conversations, we have financial conversations every single day. And whether it is doing deals to build out bigger capabilities, doing deals that require a certain percentage of down payment. The financial conversations are going on daily, multiple times.
That raises a really interesting question too when we talk about tactical go-to-market playbooks and sales strategy and sales enablement. Your background, your career experience, I imagine by itself opens a lot of doors in the C-suite, but how do you grow a team around that without having to staff every single member at that level? And in particular, like the engineer wants one thing, right? The CFO wants something different and they're signing the check. How do you cross that divide? How do mere mortals cross that divide for reaching the actual economic buyer?
I have a habit, growing up at Sun Microsystems for 22 years, I have a habit of building things that work bottoms up so that they're aligned and messaged appropriately tops down. So when I build a partnership or a solution or a opportunity to pursue, there's multiple layers to this. And if you just do it tops down, it won't work, right? And as a matter of fact, you're overtaxing your network, your relationships. And I don't believe in that approach. My approach is, yeah, I'll get advice tops down, but we'll build it bottoms up. And when we build it bottoms up, your tops down relationships and network don't get overtaxed. As a matter of fact, they don't get overexposed or exposed. And if it's done right, they're there to help you celebrate the win together for their mutual benefit as well. But it has to work bottoms up.
With that bottoms up approach, purely from a tactical perspective, we know in the self-driven journey where so much is now happening through people consuming content on LinkedIn and YouTube and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos and attending webinars. So much of it is content driven. So the challenge now in that in many ways, Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini are becoming to a certain degree another really important channel, another really important kind of gatekeeper. So it brings up the idea of content strategy and technical content. What do you find is going wrong so often when people are trying to use technical content to generate pipeline scalably and profitably?
Well, like any technology, I think you need to embrace it. You need to take advantage of it, but you can't be solely dependent on it. And I'm a big believer in human in the loop capabilities. And whether it's these, ChatGPT or Claude or anything else you may choose to use or to shortcut your point of view, that's great to do so, but you have to pay attention to the detail and the quality and the sincerity of how you're leveraging it. And I think that balance is really, really important. Not everyone does that these days. And I think that's a flaw.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge or the biggest mistake that sales teams are currently making with infrastructure buyers, or is there something else that's throwing off most sales teams that are trying to manage these infrastructure evaluations with really technical buyers?
At the end of the day, people dealing with people, right? And people buy from people, and they buy from who they trust, the brand of your company, whether it's NVIDIA or Dell or brand names that are trusted in the ecosystem, right? They buy from who they like, they buy from who they trust. And like any relationship, you're tested in the downtown. Everyone is friends, whether it's the .com days of years ago or whether it is today with the AI boom. Your tested relationship is what's going to test your brand and your trust to follow up and deliver. And if you don't recognize that it's people dealing with people, I think you're going to have a very short sales cycle that's going to come to a dead end pretty quick.
So, given the big emphasis on people working with people, do you find that that's your biggest GTM lesson or GTM playbook that you've used throughout your career that's still working well today? Or are there certain other moving parts to it that people should be thinking about?
There's always lots of moving parts, but to me, it's central. I believe in the relationship. I believe in the trust. I joke for many years, my personal word is stronger than any NDA when it comes to confidentiality, and 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 it's the world of competition, and a lot of people maybe not understand that. But growing up in the industry the way I did, we were very comfortable in the world of competition, and I think that matters, and that's for the customer's benefit. That's actually for the supplier's benefit and the partner's benefit, to recognize that you know how to deal in a area of gray, you know how to not cross pollinate and inappropriately when you shouldn't and should cannot, and you know how to be demonstrating your capabilities over the long haul, not on a one trick or one deal basis.
You mentioned something really interesting as well with the importance of trust. And I talk a lot about sales teams transforming to look a lot more like teachers, consultants, subject matter experts, trusted advisors, maybe even thought leaders. And everyone zooms back in on is trying to figure out what trust really means from a tactical playbook, how to scale that. And I always talk about that education is the first cousin of trust in this context. That's why so many more people in sales roles now are doing so much more advising and consulting and strategizing and being like the enterprise project manager, helping their internal champion drive alignment. With all of this in mind, most data center GTM teams are flying completely blind. 83% of your buyer's journey is happening before they even speak with someone from your sales team. The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is powered by DCSMI. We've studied over 1,900 industry leaders to build a diagnostic framework that identifies exactly why deals fall apart and revenue stalls. Stop guessing and start benchmarking. Subscribe now to our weekly Data Center GTM briefing at www.dcsmi.com/briefing. Again, that's dcsmi.com/briefing. BRIEFING. What do you see as a popular playbook that people are leaning on in the data center industry right now that they're certain is still working, but that you've seen without a doubt is either losing steam or has already lost most of its allure and power?
I'm not sure if this answers your question, but people think I need so much compute. I need it for this reason. I need it in that way. And not everyone needs a Lamborghini with the highest capacity, period. And it's okay to undersell you, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. You don't need quantity 100. You probably can get away with quantity 10 or 50, and that's okay, right? Because if you do this right, you're not leaving money on the table. You're actually building a pipeline for the future, for long-term business. By the way, independent of the company you're with and the focus you're with today, as well as where you are next year or in 10 years from now, you're building that network that is there for the long haul and not assumed.
It was interesting as well as we've talked about how GPU centric your business is and how integral your partnership is with NVIDIA. I know when people are budgeting for the cost of capital to build hyperscale facilities, the GPUs themselves are a pretty significant percentage. When I look at the math on that and I think about the typical go-to-market channels that companies throughout data center operators and tech and facilities and construction and real estate are using throughout the data center ecosystem, a lot tends to be very concentrated on conferences and associations, and there's a lot of discussion about how much of that is organic and authentic, how much of it is pay to play and more advertorial than editorial. How do you navigate all of that when you're looking to build a trusted brand?
At the San Francisco Compute Company, we've discovered, because of how the company started out, that there's a big opportunity to unlock the compute that's already out there. And that's a big part of what we're doing. We're not just out trying to build new stuff or get purchase new stuff, what we're doing is we're actually improving the utilization and the efficiency of what's already out there. We hear about the power envelope issues, the noisy neighbor challenges, the compute and memory constraints, right, in the industry across the globe. Tapping into what's already out there and already deployed is a massive opportunity. And that's a big part of what we're doing. We're tapping into the compute that's already out there and helping someone maybe improve their efficiency from 50% utilization to 60 or 70% if they're lucky, and actually have that infrastructure start to work and pay back for them, right? And help pay down their capex expenditure in addition to improved utilization. So I think these are early days in this space, but we like our mission, we like our charter, and we like improving the efficiency. I mean, we're almost a green story if you think about it, right? Okay, we're improving what's already out there, not just trying to go off and build more of it.
As you're starting to scale up San Francisco Compute, are you finding that your value proposition resonates most with operators like colocation or hyperscale providers? Does it resonate more with enterprises that have their own data centers? Is it a little bit of both? Where are you getting the most traction? Who's the most excited about what you bring to the table?
It's actually yes, and three other yeses you haven't touched on. It's the Neoclouds that got compute coming off of long-term contracts that they don't want to be paying the bill and not having it utilized. It's the NCPs from companies like NVIDIA, cloud providers, who's got infrastructure sitting on top of that they need to unlock the value of in a more effective and efficient fashion. It is the OEMs that want to, if they can help us create more demand, it lands in us, and that might create more demand for us to buy more stuff from them as well. So there is, it's the resellers. You mentioned the resellers earlier. It's the value-added resellers who are going on campaigns to create new value, leveraging AI, but they need short-term access to compute for a variety of reasons, including demos and evals and things of that nature. And we're an opportunity to tap into that. And it's the distributors that we have hardly touched on yet, which is how do they have a piece of the game that's going on? So it's a 360 picture. While it was relevant 30 years ago, it's relevant today by default, not by exception.
So that's as you mentioned earlier, the New York Times calling your company the Airbnb
of
the
GPU
space.
compute.
Yeah.
I also
capacity.
Yeah, well, I also call us. I also kind of analogy is we're the Kirkland of Costco, right? We hide where compute is from, so we don't cannibalize the supply chain on costs. When we're building a high volume, low cost business deliberately, and if we're selling, for instance, H100s for $2 or $2.10 an hour, and others, including partners, are selling the same kind of compute for 2, 3, or 4x more. We don't want to cannibalize our supply chain on the compute side. So we like to show our compute as the Kirkland of Costco, not saying which OEM is behind it or which OEMs are behind it. And I think that's working very effectively. On the storage side, we work with companies like Weka and Vast, and we're entertaining other storage opportunities from other major players. And we like to put them all on the truck and give customer choice, because they will care about where the data is and where it's residing, and that will matter. And we're going to get very creative on how to expand that sooner rather than later.
When you're talking through the Kirkland, when you're talking through the Costco analogy and the white label brand and giving everyone an equal seat, I kept thinking about what we talked about earlier with the legacy VARs and channel partners and distributors, and the classic idea of channel conflict. Is that something you think about as you're building your partnerships as well?
From day one. And that's where things like deal registration come into play. And that's where transparency on the deal comes into play. And I pay very strong attention to that, because that goes right back to trust, right? Who's bringing you the opportunity? You'll get in this space, you'll get a lot of companies trying to come to you with with contractual terms to where if they bring you the lead, you can't go around them. It's basically another form of deal registration in a sense, and and that's okay. But we need to mature that in a more effective way for scale. And I like where we're at, like with the journey we're on. We're also, it's quite interesting. An executive in Paris at a recent event a few weeks ago when I mentioned what we're up to and what we're doing. And one of his analogies, we talked about, Airbnb of GPU compute. We touched on the Kirkland of Costco. He also said we're like Ticketmaster for the resell feature, which is actually maybe not a great thing to say. Ticketmaster doesn't have a great reputation on the pricing and the gouging, but there is where we've got that Ticketmaster like capacity to do resell, and that's central to our technology stack. That's central to our strategy and what we're deploying. And so those analogies are very relevant as we ground people on this new space of how we're doing things in somewhat an old-fashioned way based on trust, relationships, brand, and follow-through.
I was thinking when you were describing the Ticketmaster analogy, maybe it's closer to StubHub, where it was born in the cloud specifically for trading unused capacity, where Ticketmaster has been around for decades and has that legacy brand.
Great point. I'll take StubHub. It's all good.
As an avid baseball fan who's used both sides with many teams over the years, yeah, really, really interesting. Plus, you can latch on to the tight connection between so many of the buyer personas, at least in the U.S., that are big sports fans, and utilization on the
Well,
platform.
we are in the Bay Area, so the San Francisco 49ers will fit well with that as well as the San Francisco Giants or the Warriors, right?
Alan, can you share a story of a GTM playbook that you've tried so far at San Francisco Compute that didn't go as expected, that didn't work out as planned, and what ultimately ended up causing you to pivot into something else that was much more successful?
I don't know that we've necessarily concluded. I'm there 8 or 9 months now. 9 months, 10 months. Time is flying. What I will say is that because this marketplace space is an order book is very early still in the industry, you got to talk to a lot of outfits. We come across companies every single day. They claim capacity to do X, Y, and Z. They claim the ability to stand up or deliver compute. And then when you peel the onion back one or two layers, you discover they're not as capable as they said they were. The capacity of the compute is not configured in a way that we know works. And therefore we don't trust the capability. It may be built with OEM or ODM type of infrastructure that is not got high reliability and high quality of service to it. And so we find that we continuously have to deal with a lot of individuals and companies of all kinds of sizes that claim things to not be true. So you have to talk to more than you have time to do to try to figure out who's got the capability to be real. That's a challenge. That continues to be a challenge.
Reminds me a little bit of I get a fair amount of cold email, some executed so poorly that it likely would border on what people would consider spam from companies that don't seem to really care about their branding and their positioning or establishing trust. I know you'd mentioned earlier that you try to position at a much higher value stack than seeing San Francisco Compute as an aggregator or a marketplace, but some of the challenge that you're describing in getting people on the same page and having a single way of credentialing and compliance and specifications reminded me of some founders that I spoke with last year who were building an energy marketplace for being able to aggregate both traditional energy and alternate energy and turbines and solar and fuel cells and everything. Is that part of the challenge that you're seeing, as well as just getting this common framework to be able to help people do due diligence? Are you getting involved in the diligence as part of this?
Um, at some point, maybe so, but right now we're so busy standing up what we're doing. It's um, it's candidly we just don't have the hours in the day to deal with the distractions. We do have people in our team focus on the capital market segment of the industry, if you will, at large, and that will evolve itself over the months and quarters to come. But I have not been heavily involved in it yet.
One other area I wanted to ask you about today is, have you tried outsourcing anything so far that you had high hopes going into, but you later found that you needed to keep 100% in house to be able to protect the quality or protect trust?
In terms of our current
In,
company or in terms of my
in,
past?
in terms of your current company at the stage that you're at with San Francisco Compute, and specifically on the go to market functions?
Um, I'll give you one that's real. That is on, hiring and people is our biggest cost, right? It's not infrastructure. At San Francisco, we are asset light, deliberately, and and how we staff and hire. We've gone, when I joined the company in the beginning of November, we were about 24 employees. We're now pushing 60 in the past 7 months or so, 8 months, and rapidly grown, and we will continue to have that kind of growth. We've been very fortunate to attract very high quality technical team members from across the industry. We are fortunate to be the San Francisco Compute Company headquartered in San Francisco, right? And so there's a lot of technical talent that is very um, strong in the Bay Area. And frankly, we've got very strong members elsewhere across the US also, although the majority of our employees are in the Bay Area. Hiring for good people and good talent, you can't outsource all that. So we have a hybrid of external recruiters and in-house staff to help that machinery continue, because it's core to who we are. And if we don't have the people, we got nothing.
Tripling your team size in a year. Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty core and a huge part of getting the talent acquisition. And even when you mentioned the geographic location, that's always been the decades long playbook, is the talent density in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and it's why what's quite interesting, Joshua, is, I mean, I'm living here in the Bay Area a long time, right? Going back to the Sundays in the '80s, and um, whether it's COVID or cost of living and all kinds of other things over the years, um, we're finding that I'm seeing actually hands on. We're seeing people relocate to the Bay Area to come work for the San Francisco Compute Company from other areas, whether it's as expensive from New York or whether it is a lot cheaper elsewhere, and pay the premium to move to be part of something special. And we don't take that lightly. Um, we actually take it very seriously, and it's people's livelihoods and careers, and we pay very strong attention to that.
Alan, final area I want to ask you about today is, if you look into your crystal ball with 12, 18, 24 months out from now, where do you see the data center and compute GTM landscape evolving? What do you think is going to change? What do you think will stay the same about what you're working on today?
Um, Recognizing the nascent early space of where we are right now, I think that it'll just be doing more. How do we have more control of the compute access that we require will remain critical. How we leverage critical partners, including firms like NVIDIA, will be critical and will remain critical. Today we're an Inception member of NVIDIA's, where they have 40,000 startup companies today. We're almost, in some sense, also looking like we're a Neocloud. I call it a Neocloud 2.0 as opposed to 1.0. I'm also ex Lambda, and was involved in helping sell a company to NVIDIA 2 years ago called Brev, focused on the developer community. We The NCPs from NVIDIA are heavily undertapped, and we look like an ISV for NVIDIA as well, and that's a good thing. So we got many personas how we look, but the underlying premise, the value proposition, the technology, and our value all in is consistent and remains the same. I think it's just more about market expansion. What are we doing to expand? Our biggest deployment worldwide, by the way, is in Norway, right? Which is quite interesting for the San Francisco Compute Company. We're a global company, and we are going to be expanding into other areas outside of our focus of North America, Europe, and the Middle East, to add on, of course, Australia, India, and many other regions around the globe. We just want to make sure we got the true technical access that we require, and the right arrangement for partnership and scale that we're putting in place elsewhere.
Alan, if a GTM leader watching today takes away just one action item from our conversation, what would you like that to be?
Interesting. I haven't thought about that question. Don't assume anything, and be true to yourself, because it's your personal brand in addition to your company brand. It goes back full circle to our earlier conversation on the definition of trust and follow through. Don't take it for granted.
That is fascinating. Alan, where can our listeners, where can our viewers learn a little bit more about you, follow what you're working on, learn a little bit more about San Francisco Compute? Is LinkedIn a good place to start? Website? Any favorite channels?
LinkedIn is a great place to start. You'll find us on SF Compute, San Francisco Compute Company on LinkedIn. You'll see me on it. I'm on it from the early days when LinkedIn was running on Sun before Microsoft bought it. I think that's a great place to go. You can also go to our website, sfcompute.com. It's a pretty raw website. It's not a fancy website yet, but you will get right to the heart of the matter. If you need compute, you'll see it right there. You can also find us through NVIDIA /Brev. You can buy SF Compute capacity today directly from us, or you can buy it through NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is now a customer and a partner of ours, and we're on the approved vendor list for NVIDIA, which is quite interesting for an early stage company. Two channels directly to us through NVIDIA /Brev, and of course, follow us on LinkedIn and all the other mediums out there.
That's really cool. We'll for sure include links to your LinkedIn and the company page in your profile, and the San Francisco Compute website and the Brev website on NVIDIA as well. So our viewers that want to learn more have a convenient way to reach out. Alan, this has really, really been an amazing talk today. I've really enjoyed our time together today. I've been speaking with Alan Butler, who is Chief Business Officer of San Francisco Compute Company in San Francisco, California. Thanks so much for joining me, Alan.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Joshua.
Most data center GTM teams are flying completely blind. 83% of your buyer's journey is happening before they even speak with someone from your sales team. The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is powered by DCSMI. We've studied over 1,900 industry leaders to build a diagnostic framework that identifies exactly why deals fall apart and revenue stalls. Stop guessing and start benchmarking. Subscribe now to our weekly Data Center GTM briefing at www.dcsmi.com/briefing. Again, that's dcsmi.com/briefing. BRIEFING.